So, you're eyeing Southeast Asia's booming e-learning scene, right? You're in the right place. Today, we're diving into the strategic blueprint for two of the most interesting markets out there, Vietnam and Cambodia. This is going to be good. Let's jump in. Okay, let's just kick things off with a number that should really grab your attention. 18.4%. That is the massive growth rate projected for Vietnam's e-learning market every single year through 2029. We're not just talking growth here. That's an absolute explosion. The real question, though, is how do you actually get a piece of that action? And that question, well, that's at the heart of what we're talking about today. Think of this whole thing as a new kind of e-learning gold rush. You've got these two markets right next to each other, but they are two completely different worlds, offering two very different paths to success. I want you to imagine you're the entrepreneur, standing at a fork in the road. In one direction, you have Vietnam, this high-growth giant, and in the other, Cambodia, the promising upstart. So, which way do you go? Well, the smart move is to understand the landscape before you take a single step.
All right, so to really get a handle on this, we're going to put these two strategic battlegrounds head-to-head. We'll break down the crucial differences in the market, the tech you'll need, and most importantly, the students themselves.
Let's start with the big picture, the 30,000-foot view. Vietnam is already a massive $4.2 billion market. It's buzzing, fueled by a huge, young, tech-loving population. The catch? You're stepping into a ring with over 100 other edtech startups already there. Now, Cambodia, that's a different story. It's a new market, just getting started. Competition is super low, and the demand is driven by a real, urgent need for job skills. So here's the question you have to ask yourself. Do you want to fight for a sliver of a giant existing pie, or do you want to be the one baking the very first pie in a brand new town?
Now, this is where it gets super practical. The infrastructure on the ground completely dictates the kind of product you can even build. In Vietnam, you've got amazing internet almost everywhere. Go ahead, build that slick course with HD video, live classes, the whole 9 yards. But if you try to just copy-paste that model into Cambodia, where data is expensive and the connection can be spotty, your product is dead on arrival. For that upstart market, you have to think mobile first, low bandwidth, and even offer content people can download to use offline. It's a totally different design philosophy.
And this chart just drives that point home. Look at Vietnam, sitting pretty at nearly 80% internet penetration. Now look at Cambodia, at 57%. But the real kicker is that little note at the bottom. That 57% hides a huge gap between the cities and the countryside. If you go in with a one-size-fits-all tech strategy, you're setting yourself up to fail before you even begin.
So all that tech stuff we just talked about, it directly shapes who your students are and what they actually want. In Vietnam, learners are chasing career promotions and better grades. For you, the challenge is just getting noticed in a crowded space. But in Cambodia, the motivation is way more fundamental. Students are literally struggling with things like finding a reliable internet connection or just a quiet corner to study. So your challenge, and really your biggest opportunity, is to be the one who solves those real-world problems for them.
And if you need any more proof, just look at these numbers. It is so telling. When you ask Cambodian university students what they want, more than half of them say a blended hybrid model, a mix of online and in-person. Only about 15% want to be fully online. This isn't just a slight preference, it's a huge strategic signal. If you launch a purely online product in Cambodia, you're pretty much ignoring what the vast majority of your potential customers are asking for.
Okay, so you've got the market figured out, you know your customer, but here comes the big boss battle. Navigating the legal maze. And I'm not just talking about some extra paperwork. Getting this part wrong can absolutely kill your business before you even make your first dollar.
For Vietnam, everything, and I mean everything, boils down to this one crucial distinction. Is your e-learning course interactive or non-interactive? See, if you're just selling pre-recorded videos, you're basically an online store. But the second you add a live Q&A, a group coaching call, any real-time interaction, boom, the game completely changes.
And this slide shows you just how much it changes. The non-interactive route is faster, sure, but it has its own limits. But that interactive model, which is what most of us think of as modern online learning, gets you classified as an educational service. Suddenly, you're under the direct authority of the Ministry of Education and Training. You're subject to Decree 86, and now you have to meet strict requirements for how much money you have, what your curriculum looks like, and even physical facilities. Yep, you heard that right. You might need a brick-and-mortar location for your online school. So, if you want to go the interactive route, this is the obstacle course you have to run. First, the Investment Registration Certificate, or IRC, where you prove you have the money and an office.
Then the Enterprise Registration Certificate, the ERC, which makes your company official. And only after all that can you start the final, most grueling step, submitting a massive dossier to the Ministry of Education for their approval. This whole marathon can take 3 to 4 months, and trust me, trying to do it without expert local lawyers is a recipe for disaster.
So what do you do? On one hand, you have a high-growth but super complex giant. On the other, a lower-risk but much smaller upstart. It feels like you're stuck, right? Well, the winning play here isn't about choosing either or. It's about sequence.
This right here is the blueprint. Phase 1, you start in Cambodia. The regulations are simpler so you can get up and running fast. You use it as your real-world laboratory to test your blended learning model, perfect your curriculum, and start building a brand. Then comes Phase 2, and this is the genius move. You do it in parallel. While your Cambodian operation is actually making money and giving you priceless data, your legal team is slowly and carefully working on getting you licensed in Vietnam. And then, Phase 3. The moment that Vietnamese license is approved, you launch. But you're not launching on a prayer. You're launching a product that's already proven, refined, and localized for the region into that bigger, much more profitable market. It's an absolutely brilliant way to de-risk the whole adventure.
So there you have it, the full market breakdown, the legal roadmap, and a phased step-by-step plan that lets you use the strengths of both markets to your advantage. The blueprint is clear. The only question left is, are you ready to launch?